My name is Lucian Trent, and at my sister's wedding, her future father-in-law walked right past me like I didn't exist. No handshake, no nod, not even a glance, just that quiet, dismissive energy that men like him have spent their entire lives perfecting. I stood there in a tailored suit, drink in hand, and I smiled. Because Roland Rowe, the man so proud of his last name he probably signs it in gold ink, had spent the last 6 months trying to acquire a tech company. He didn't know I co-founded it. He didn't know his entire business depended on it. And he definitely didn't know that I built it from nothing while raising my little sister from the ashes of a life that collapsed overnight. Roland saw what he wanted to see, a nobody, a nameless, titleless background character. That's fine, because in a few minutes, when I'd be called up for an unexpected speech, everything was about to change. His posture, his expression, his grip on that wine glass. Some people don't like surprises. Roland was one of them. He turned pale, and I just smiled. They say the hardest part of loss is the silence that follows. That's true, but nobody talks about the noise before it. The sound of a phone ringing at an hour it should never ring. The rush in your ears when someone speaks words you were never supposed to hear. For me, it was my academic advisor's voice. Lucian. There's been an accident. My father was gone. Just like that. One moment, he was planning a trip to visit me and my younger sister, Isolde. The next, I was driving back to a hometown that already felt foreign without him. I was 22, exhausted from exams. Isolde was 17, 1 week away from high school graduation. We had no mother in the picture. She had left years ago to build a new life with a new family. So it was just us. 2 orphans, 1 car, and a future that had collapsed overnight. The funeral was a blur. What came after was brutal clarity. Debt, so much debt. My father had been self-employed, and somewhere along the way, things had spiraled out of control. Loans, unpaid bills, failed business dealings. He had tried to protect us from it, shielding us until the very last moment. But when the death notice went public, the creditors came without mercy. They took everything. The house, the car, his workshop. All that remained was the small suitcase of clothes I had packed for semester break. My scholarship covered tuition, but rent, food, Isolde's education. We were completely on our own. That night, after the last relative left and the door clicked shut, I sat on the floor with Isolde. She was crying, knees pulled to her chest inside her hoodie, and I understood something in that moment. Nobody is coming. I was the only adult in her world now. So I made a decision. I would finish my degree, find a job, keep us afloat. I worked at the campus cafe during the day, took courier shifts in the evenings, slept maybe 4 hours a night. There were days. I walked into lectures still sweaty from carrying boxes up 4 flights of stairs. Every dollar I earned had to carry 2 lives. I lost my girlfriend somewhere along that road. She was kind, patient, but she needed more than delayed messages and forgotten plans. I let her go, not because I didn't feel anything, but because there was nothing left of me to give. People talk about building character like it's a clean, inspiring process. Mine was forged through overdraft fees and midnight bus rides. It was built in the moment I looked at my little sister and knew she deserves a future, even if I have to burn mine down to give it to her. After graduation, there was no celebration, no cap toss, no photos, just a quiet exhale and a job offer from a mid-sized firm in the back-end sector. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. Isolde and I moved into a tiny 1-bedroom apartment. She got the bedroom. I got the couch. She started community college. I juggled spreadsheets and customer calls. Every evening I cooked for us, even if it was just rice and eggs. And every night after she went to sleep, I stayed up learning. Online courses, marketing, automation systems, SaaS platforms, anything that could sharpen my skills. I didn't know what opportunity was coming, but I promised myself I'd be ready when it did. It came on a rainy Thursday evening. A message from Felix Marine, an old classmate who remembered my business instincts. He and another friend were building a tech tool to automate back-end systems. They needed someone for operations and early client presentations. I was unsure. It sounded risky, but it also sounded alive. And I hadn't felt alive in years. So I said yes. My life split into 2 halves. 9 to 5, corporate job, suit and tie, answering to middle managers. 7 p.m. to 2 a.m., code bases, pitch decks, and late night calls with Felix. We worked out of coffee shops, used borrowed server space. Some nights, I fell asleep with my laptop still glowing on my chest. Money was tight. There were arguments. One of our co-founders walked out after a brutal 6-month dry spell. Felix and I barely held on. Then in the breakthrough. An enterprise client tested our tool and cut their processing time by 40%. They told 3 other companies. Suddenly, we had demo calls, overflowing inboxes, and feedback loops we could barely keep up with. A review on a major tech blog brought the first real wave of attention. But even then, I didn't quit my job. I had learned too early how fragile stability can be. I saved every cent. I handled customer support tickets, invoices, and system errors between lunch breaks and long nights. Felix was the public face. Presentations, cameras, tech talks. I was the man behind the curtain. And I preferred it that way. Because while others chased titles and LinkedIn clout, I was chasing something else entirely. Peace of mind. A life where Isolde didn't have to count every dollar at the grocery store. A life where her future wasn't defined by what we had lost. She earned her place at a state university through pure merit. I paid every bill on time. We had savings, health insurance, functioning devices. That felt like luxury. Nobody saw how much it cost. I didn't want them to. Then life did what life always does. It brought everything full circle. It was a Tuesday evening when Isolde called. I had just collapsed onto the couch, still in work clothes, eating pasta straight from the box. Her voice was breathless, excited, but strangely hesitant. Lucien, I need to tell you something. I'm getting married. My fork froze midair. His name was Damien. They'd been serious for a while, she said. She just hadn't known how to tell me. When I finally met Damien, he arrived with flowers in one hand and a wine bottle in the other, polite, well-spoken, clearly in love with my sister. But there was something about his last name that made me pause. Rowe. Are you related to Roland Rowe? I asked carefully. He paused, just a fraction of a second too long. He's my father. And everything clicked. Roland Rowe was one of our biggest enterprise clients. Not just a client. He had been actively trying to acquire our platform for months. His emails were full of barely concealed offers, as if he was doing us a favor by showing interest. In the industry, he was well known. Not evil, just cold, dismissive, purely transactional. A reputation for crushing partnerships just to own the pieces. And now his son was marrying my sister. I kept my face neutral, said nothing about the company. This was about Isolde, and if Damien was genuine, I would find a way to make peace with the rest. Later that night, Isolde pulled me into the kitchen. You were quiet. Is everything okay? Are you happy? I asked. More than I've ever been, she said. He's not like his father, Lucien. He's kind. He listens. I looked at her face. She wasn't begging for approval. She was glowing. Then I'm behind you, I said. The wedding day came. Isolde was radiant. Not just from the dress or the makeup, but from the look of a woman who knows she is loved without fear. She squeezed my hand before walking to the altar. Thank you for everything, she whispered. At the reception, I stayed in the background, spoke quietly with guests. Then I saw Roland move through the room with 2 other men. He walked past me again, deliberate, calculated. He still didn't know who I was. Not really, but he was about to. A catering staff member tapped me on the shoulder. You're up next. 2 minutes. For what? Speech. The mic is ready. I could have said no. Maybe I should have. But something in me, a mix of pride, memory, and quiet resolve, said otherwise. This was my sister's wedding. The closest thing I'd ever had to a daughter was stepping into a new life. And this room still didn't know who I was. So I stood up, adjusted my jacket, and walked to the front. Good evening, I began, calm, steady. My name is Lucien, Isolde's brother. But I wasn't always just her brother. When our father died suddenly, I became her guardian. I was 22, she was 17, we had no other family. Our mother had been gone for years. The room shifted. Glasses were set down. Silverware went still. I was in the middle of my degree when it happened. I couldn't afford to break down, not when she needed food, a home, and an education. So I worked day and night. I slept less than I should. I lost friends. I lost someone I loved. I glanced at Isolde. She was already crying. But we made it, I said softly. She made it because she is brilliant, brave, and has a heart that forgave me for the times. I wasn't enough. A quiet murmur moved through the crowd. Even Roland had turned around. I want to say one more thing. I continued, my voice steadier now. During those years of just trying to survive, I built something. A software platform. Some of you may even use it. Heads turned. Eyes exchanged glances. My co-founder Felix is here tonight. We started with borrowed code and broken laptops. Today we support some of the largest companies in the country. I let the silence sit for a moment. I don't say that to talk business, I added. I say it because it's part of this story. The same story that brought me to this room. To this day, to this moment, I turned to Isolde and Damien. I'm so proud of you both. You found something rare: trust, partnership, and joy. It is my honor to stand here and say, you are ready. I stepped back from the microphone. The applause was immediate, and I walked back to my table. I didn't make it far. Roland Rowe stepped into my path like a shadow peeling off a wall. He extended his hand, smile tight, controlled. Lucian, was that your name? That was an impressive speech. I shook his hand, firm, not warm. Thank you. You're the co-founder of JE? Yes, I said. The company you've been trying to acquire for months? His smile cracked, just for a second. I had no idea, he admitted. Why didn't you say anything when we met? I held his gaze. Because I wanted you to see who I am when you thought I was nobody. He had no answer. I smiled politely. Enjoy the evening, Mr. Rowe, and I walked past him. We never sold the company to Roland Rowe, not because of the way he treated me, but because his interest was never based on mutual respect. It was based on the assumption that everything and everyone has a price. I don't do business with men who only recognize your value after reading your resume. Ironically, Rowe Industries still licenses our platform today. His employees submit support tickets through the same system as everyone else. We respond quickly, professionally, politely, strictly business. Damien has never brought it up. He respects boundaries. More importantly, he respects Isolde. And Isolde? She is at peace. Real peace. She teaches. She gardens. She volunteers on weekends. And she smiles in a way she never did back then. Back when everything could fall apart at any moment. That smile is what I fought for. That is my return on investment. Some people still think I'm just the quiet guy in the background. I let them think that, because I know the truth. The ones who ignore you when you're silent are the same ones who suddenly scramble for your respect the moment someone announces your title. But by then, their respect means nothing. Real respect shows up when nobody is watching. It is not a reaction. It is a choice. Roland's greatest mistake wasn't underestimating me. It was assuming that invisibility means insignificance. I never needed the spotlight. All I needed was to know my sister was safe. And now she is. That is more than enough.